So, Amber, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
Obviously, as the writer, producer, director, you have a lot to tell us, I think, about the origins of this piece. What I know from the notes here is that your friend Amy Poehler handed you a book, and there began a tale.
Yeah, it must have been 10 years ago, Amy said, there's this book I read over the summer. It's amazing. With no, I think, eye towards adapting it at all. Just like as a friend saying, hey, you should read this book. It's really beautiful. And I think she thought that I would really respond to the sort of, being a poet myself, respond to the sort of poetic prose and narrative in the book, which I did. And I had read books before that felt like they could, live somewhere in a cinematic world. But this, for some reason, just got under my skin, the book did, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I think, once I started down the road of pursuing it, I just couldn't let it go.
So, were you originally thinking of it to act in, or?
I was, yeah. I had originally, if you see that there's in the thank yous, Ben Foster is in there, and so originally I'd written it for Ben Foster and I to be in, and the Michael role was a little bit larger, and so that was sort of where it started in my early 20s, and as most films take a very long time to get made, I got older and felt that there would be a real difference between someone who was in their early 20s compared to someone who was in their late 20s or even early 30s, the way that I am. And I felt like that the character really needed to have a naivete about her, and that could only come from youth.
So, when did the decision to direct happen, and when did you decide that that's what you wanted to do? This is your first directorial effort.
Yes,
right?
yeah, it's my first film. It came late in the process. I had for a couple of years been shopping it around and had a wonderful producer, Ren Arthur, that I was working with and was looking for directors. And it just sort of seemed to be that every director we spoke to, they had a vision of the film that they wanted to make, but it bumped up against the vision I had for the movie. And it was actually Courtney Hunt who was attached to it for about a year. And she and I sat and I did a couple rewrites for her, and she had a very strong vision for what she wanted to do with the film, but fundamentally we disagreed on many different aspects. One of the biggest ones was the funeral scene. What she really wanted to be this like nasty, handheld, gnarly fight between two women, and I really didn't see it that way. I saw it bordering on comedic and arch, and it was Courtney who said to me, I think you're missing the greater point here, which is that you clearly have a strong vision for the movie you want to make, and you should make it. To which I was like, oh, no, I've never, I have no experience. And she's like, you think half of men who make films have any experience at all? I was like, that's a good point. So I just, I jumped in.
The cinematography, the production design, the editing, the music, the look of the film. Let's talk first about the look. The lighting of this film seems almost like it's a specific character being added. Could you talk about the discussions you had about what your palette was going to be for this film?
Well, I think you just said that it was deliberate storytelling, and Amber being so clear and direct about what her scenes were about, what her characters are about, and what her story is about. Really, we didn't have much time, and there was so much economy in everything that we were doing that we were trying to be as direct and visual as possible to get across what the scene was about, the story is about, and you were so clear about it that I'm excited that people feel that, because I felt that there was a real pressure of getting things done with like a poverty of circumstances and the most economical way possible. So it's nice to see that everything did achieve the emotional response that we're looking for,
How many
and also
days?
in an original way.
How many
21.
21.
Lord help.
And they rained a lot.
Oh,
It was brutal.
in
It
Los
was
Angeles,
brutal.
no less.
And this is only half of what we shot. I mean, this movie actually starred Alfred Molina and Russ Tamblyn, and I cut them out of the film.
That's a lot, by the way.
No, you
So
know,
let's talk about that a little bit. What Alfred's part, and Alfred also talk about, what what the part was as you saw it when you were shooting, and then what you see it on the screen. What was the transition for you as an actor to see the way that character was dealt with by the director?
Well, it was a combination of things. One was that I just love making films like this. Independent films, small films. I think it's where people find themselves at their most creative. Creativity that comes out of a sense of necessity. There isn't, we don't have the luxury of time or money or resources. So you find people are really working very creative, very, very ingeniously to kind of get things done. I've known Amber for some time. She and her dad came to see me in a play many, many years ago, and we had the same reps for a while, and so it was. I was very pleased to get involved in her first film, and I've admired her as a writer and as an actor, and I thought, well, this, if she's a triple threat, I want to get in on the action, But it was also the script was really interesting, and I thought it was such a refreshing change to see a story, to see a script that was driven by two female characters for a start, which is, to me, much, much more interesting in terms of the dynamics of a story. A female director, and I just thought this could be really, really interesting. And I liked the role. I liked the part. I liked this father who, in a sense, had failed and was trying to somehow make amends, even though it was a bit too late, perhaps, and a bit after the fact. And I found that very touching, and also, and as Amber alluded to, the scene that made me laugh out loud and made me think, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, was the funeral, which had this wonderful kind of farcical element with the mother and the girlfriend kind of struggling to and the father. It was just, there was something. I'd never seen that before. I'd never experienced that in a movie before, and I just thought it just felt really, sometimes with a script, I don't know if there are any actors out here, but I don't know, but sometimes with a script you can kind of smell a good story. There's something about not just the things people say, but the things they don't say, the moments in between the lines, and that just kind of really rang out to me, and I was really keen to get, really excited to get involved.
So Russ, am I mistaken? There's like one shot that he's...
There is, but I mean, for real, this movie is 96 minutes long, but when we did the first assemble of it, it was 3 hours and 15 minutes. So almost half of the footage, ended up on the cutting room floor, and some of Fred's stuff, and certainly my dad had come in and done this really lovely scene with Janet, and you only see him for a quick moment.
Right.
And I tried everything I could to keep that scene in there, but it just... I mean, those were areas where you started to feel like we need to keep pushing towards this ping pong match between these two women, and everything else just sort of has to...
Suddenly a different movie.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think I would have... I think it would have been sacrilege to not have Russ Tamblyn in my first film. That would have been cruel. So I kept a peace, and I still have. He told a really great story, I think, to Janet, because I said, I want you to tell her a story in this scene. And so he ended up doing that. And so I still have that. Maybe I'll put it out as like a short film, just Dad and Janet.
No, the director's cut.
The director's cut. There it is. Yeah.
There it is. I can see the DVD now.
The extras.
Well, I actually. Of course, Amber wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
That's true. That's true. Fair.
But I noticed, I was thinking, watching it this time, this is about the 5th time that I've seen the film, and I particularly noticed the influences that she was brought up with as a child, being around David Lynch, and especially I was thinking about a movie that I made called The Haunting. And The Haunting was about two women Julie Harris and Clara Bloom, who had a really strange kind of relationship. But
in a house.
The other thing about the Haunting was the house was a big character. And I really noticed this time, more than any other times that I've seen it, how much of the house had a way bigger part than I did. But it was important, I mean, because the house was really a major character in the film. And by the way, as far as for directing, I don't even know if you remember, Amber, but Amber used to direct, we had little cameras. Remember, we went to Colorado, and she used to make movies. And she was always directing. She was directing all the kids in the neighborhood, you know, do this, do that.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you
Thank
for
you guys for
sharing
coming.
stories about the film.
Thank you guys.